This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody. Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
వినిపిస్తుందా? డిస్టర్బెన్స్ ఏం లేదు కదా?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I think all of you came. Before going to the theory class, I want to know any one of you can answer me what are the common acquired causes of heart disease in children? Acquired heart disease. Congenital, everybody will tell. Tell me some acquired heart disease in children.
Streptococcus glomerulonephritis.
Rheumatic heart disease.
Rheumatic heart disease. Don't call it as streptococcal rheumatic heart disease. There is no name. Rheumatic heart disease. So it may be due to streptococcal. You have to call it rheumatic heart disease, one of the acquired heart disease. Anything else? Nowadays, rising. Actually, previously, rheumatic heart disease was the leading cause of acquired heart diseases in children. But one more condition nowadays it's rising, and last year it was seen as what as the essay question also. What is that?
Kawasaki.
Fujita. Kawasaki disease. Okay. Anything else? If anybody asks you, tell me some acquired heart diseases. Rheumatic heart disease, Kawasaki disease, and infective endocarditis. It can affect the native heart, structurally normal heart also, or some abnormal valves after repair, like also, or after some shunts, also it affects. So infective endocarditis, one more. So most common is the rheumatic heart disease, followed by Kawasaki disease and infective heart disease, infective endocarditis. These are the acquired heart diseases in children. So other conditions also there. These are the leading causes of acquired heart diseases. So today, as it is very common, and all of you should know rheumatic heart disease, because why you should remember rheumatic. We have to know about the rheumatic heart disease. Before going into rheumatic heart disease, we have to talk about acute rheumatic fever. That's why at the class of I will be taking this topic, acute rheumatic fever. Why you should know about acute rheumatic fever or acute rheumatic fever with carditis or rheumatic heart disease? What is the reason? Because it's common, and can you prevent it or not?
It can be preventable, ma'am.
Preventable. For that purpose, always, whenever it's not the great that diagnosing a rare condition which will not be treated at all, not like that. We should know common conditions, treatable conditions, or at least preventable conditions. Most importantly, we should prevent. Otherwise, at least we have to treat the conditions. So those are the fundamentals. As an MBBS doctor, if you want to able to diagnose a case of acute rheumatic fever, it's a blunder. It's a negligence on the part of the MBBS doctor. So all of you should know the features, clinical features of acute rheumatic fever. How will you suspect? What is the criteria? And how will you manage? And I think in general medicine also they will take this class also. I think it is over for you in general medicine, rheumatic fever.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, whether it's over or not, we have to compare with adults and pediatrics. Slight changes will be there. So coming to the rheumatic fever, as all of you know, only minimally affects the joints. That's what it's called as licks the joint but bites the heart. For externally, the joints like knee joint and other joints there will be severe arthralgia, but it's upset without any sequelae. But it affects the heart, severe sequelae will be there. That's why a common word like they will say licks the joint but bites the heart. Coming to the introduction, as I told you, it's a leading cause of acquired heart disease, followed by Kawasaki disease. Actually, Kawasaki disease is not in your topic, actually syllabus, not as a like must to know. But rheumatic fever is a must to know. But why we don't know? University people last year they gave Kawasaki. For that purpose, you should know. If the time permits, I will tell at the end of this class. Otherwise, in the next class, I will take about Kawasaki. And coming to the age incidence, it's around 5 to 15 years. Most common peak incidence will be 5 to 15 years. It's rare beyond 30 years and before 3 years. But sometimes we see cases around 5 years. but most commonly in school-going children. Why? Because they will expose to more number of people and more chances of overcrowding at schools, and if there is no proper sanitation, hygiene, and at the home also, these children are more prone for streptococcal throat infections. That's why age group is 5 to 15 years. Okay, 5 to 15 is school going age. That's why we won't see mitral stenosis in a child of less than 10 years, but it takes around 5 to 6 years to develop mitral stenosis. But rarely you will see around 7 years, depending upon the condition where the child is living. If there is overcrowding, unhygienic practices, or there are less seeking health-seeking behavior of the family members, they're more prone at earlier age only. And coming to the organism, as all of you know, it's due to group A beta hemolytic streptococci. What are the other diseases caused by group A beta hemolytic streptococci? One is acute rheumatic fever. Any other conditions which are caused by this?
Glomerulonephritis.
Glomerulonephritis.
Glomerulonephritis. Good. Anything else?
Throat infection.
First and foremost is a pharyngitis or throat infection or sore throat. And next is the very common is pyoderma, skin lesions. So usually after pharyngitis, there may be chances of the rheumatic fever. After skin infections like impetigo, pyoderma, there are more chances of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. And pneumonia, this streptococcus can cause pneumonia, necrotizing fasciitis, rheumatic fever, glomerulonephritis, osteomyelitis, scarlet fever, erysipelas, toxic shock syndrome. So these are the list of some of the conditions or diseases caused by group A streptococci. So coming to the rheumatic fever, it's a non-suppurative complication of group A streptococcal pharyngitis. Usually it's a immune mediated. This rheumatic fever is immune mediated after this group A streptococcal pharyngitis. That's what it's called as non-suppurative. Suppurative means osteomyelitis. This is a suppurative, pneumonia is a suppurative complication. Okay. And the latent period usually 1 to 3 weeks will be the latent period, and it's a delayed immune response caused by antibody cross reactivity. That's why it's called as immune mediated antibody cross reactivity that can involve the heart, joints, skin, and brain. Usually cell wall of this bacteria mimics with the collagen tissue. That's why there will be chances of cross reactivity because of the antibody and involves the heart, joints, skin, and brain. And serotypes. What are the serotypes? If you can remember this will be useful for your PG entrance. They will ask what are the serotypes of streptococci can cause rheumatic fever. Because some serotypes only cause rheumatic fever, some serotypes of the streptococcus causes glomerulonephritis. So M serotypes 1, 3, 5, 6, 18, and 24 are the serotypes which causes the rheumatic fever. For entrance speed, and if you are answering well in the orals, you may be asked. So people, you can remember, try to remember this numbers. If you repeatedly read, then you will remember. So untreated group A beta hemolytic streptococcal infection is the commonest antecedent event that precipitates an attack of acute rheumatic fever. But if you ask the history, only 50% of the people will give the history of sore throat 1 to 3 weeks prior to the acute rheumatic fever. Epidemiology, prevalence usually it's in India 0.5%, and 50% of children with acute rheumatic fever suffer from rheumatic heart disease. That's why we have to diagnose acute rheumatic fever and treat to prevent development of rheumatic heart disease. Sexes, both sexes are equally affected, but mitral valvular lesions are more common with the female children. Mostly in winter season. Predisposing factors, as I told already discussed, low socioeconomic status, overcrowding, and poor medical care. So there are some decline due to this usage of antibiotics. The decline in the developed countries and even developing countries also due to widespread use of antibiotics, and better housing facilities and economic and health improvement, decreased bacterial virulence, easy access to the medical care. So nowadays we rarely see acute rheumatic heart disease. But now, because that is decreasing, we are able to diagnose. Kawasaki also used to be there, but now because acute rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease is declining, people are concentrating on Kawasaki disease. Actually, what is the recent criteria? Jones criteria? Recently updated in which year? Edition OPG also it mentioned. Is it 1992 or anything else? I think just within few days ago, I think few days ago only general medicine people discussed about this acute rheumatic fever, I think so. Is it 1992 only they discussed or recent one they discussed? If you know, then it will be better. I will tell, otherwise I will tell also if you won't answer also. In which year? Jones criteria updated again by American Heart Association.
1997, ma'am.
2015. 2015. I will discuss with you. Okay, this is 1992 actually, but as 2015 means almost 2020, no, 5 years over. So all of you has to read it. Already this came in your recent edition, that is 9th edition of OPK and 21st and 22nd editions of Nelson. Modified criteria only is there. So please read. Only slight changes are there. I will tell what are the changes. This is the 1991 where 5 major and 4 minor criteria used to be there. And for diagnosis of rheumatic fever, 2 major, 1 major with 2 minor with essential criteria should be there. So the 3 main changes in Jones diagnostic criteria, that is 2015 revision of Duquette-Jones criteria by American Heart Association and World Health Federation. So mainly they divided depending upon the risk stratification, they divided into low risk population, medium or high risk population, 2 categories. Low risk population, diagnostic criteria varies, and medium to high risk. What is low risk, what is medium risk ability? And echocardiographic detection of subclinical. Usually previously they used to take only carditis as a major criteria. Now even subclinical carditis, before clinical manifestation, if there are echo findings, then also we can take it as a major criteria. And joint manifestations. Joint manifestation, what are the joint manifestations usually these people will have in rheumatic fever? Maunika.
Migratory polyarthritis.
Below.
Migratory polyarthritis, ma'am.
Migratory polyarthritis used to be the major criteria. Polyarthritis, polyarthralgia, arthralgia minor criteria. When arthritis is an active criteria, then they will take their arthralgia. What is the difference between arthritis and arthralgia? Pavan.
Pain in arthralgia. Arthritis means inflammation of the joint capsule, ma'am.
So clinically, how they manifest? Clinically, they will have pain, swelling, mobility restriction. All features will be there in arthritis. Arthralgia, only pain will be there. Okay, we can't see any swelling, erythema, restriction of movements, all will not be there in arthralgia. Okay, arthralgia only subjective. The person only tells the pain. But if you examine, nothing will be there. But in case of arthritis, it's subjective and objective also. Okay, now you got?
Yes, ma'am.
Arthritis is a major criteria. Arthralgia is a minor criteria. Polyarthritis. But recent 2015 criteria, what they mean, low risk people, if there is polyarthritis, then only it's a major criteria. For medium to high risk people, even monoarthritis is a major criteria. Okay, and also polyarthralgia is also major criteria for low, medium to high risk population. So what is medium, what is low? So in 2015 revision, definition of low risk population means acute rheumatic fever incidence of less than 2 per 1 lakh school age children per year, are an all-age prevalence of rheumatic heart disease less than or equal to 1 per 1000 population per year. So all of you should remember, I think it's a recent change. No, people, examiners may ask you because whether you know or not, because recent means 2015, already 5 years is over, and it came in textbooks also. So go through your textbook OPK once you go home. You are already at home. In the evening, all of you has to read once, then you will get again. Okay. So low risk means acute rheumatic fever incidence less than 2 per 1 lakh school-aged children per year, or prevalence of rheumatic heart disease less than or equal to 1 per 1,000 population per year. Okay. Incidence is different, prevalence is different. So any one criteria we can take to label it as low risk. So what is not a low risk will be the moderate to high risk. Okay. And more than 2 per 1 lakh school-aged children per year, or prevalence of rheumatic heart disease more than 1 per 1,000 population per year is called as medium to high risk. So first we will stratify risk, then only we will consider the major and minor criteria. So next is the additional subclinical carditis as a major manifestation that was not there previously. It was included in 2015. So clinical carditis being defined as an audible murmur consistent with acute aortic insufficiency and regurgitation and mitral regurgitation. That's a clinical carditis. Usually, if you auscultate, you will able to hear musical quality changing murmur of acute aortic regurgitation or mitral regurgitation murmur. That will be clinically. But if there are no murmur, if you do echo, then echo findings are suggested to then subclinical carditis. That also major criteria. In 2000, interest was going in importance of subclinical carditis. Clinically silent valvular environment only detectable through echo is an indication of acute rheumatic fever. So this is the change. Here I think, are you able to see? This table is there in European also. If you are able to, is it clear? Same as I told you, low risk
Yes,
population
ma'am.
and moderate population. Definition: low risk, less than 2 per 1 lakh school going children. Major criteria, as I told you, for low risk carditis, clinical and a subclinical. This is for both low risk or high risk. But arthritis, polyarthritis only is the criteria in case of low risk. But in case of moderate to high risk, monoarthritis also, even single joint involvement also, or polyarthralgia also, multiple joints with only joint pain also is a criteria. And chorea anyhow is for same low risk and high risk. Erythema marginatum also same for both and subcutaneous nodules. Only change you have to remember that carditis subclinical for both, and arthritis, polyarthritis only for low risk. Even monoarthritis, polyarthralgia also for moderate to high risk population. Next, coming to the minor criteria, there are some changes. You can notify here. Carditis minor criteria, prolonged peer interval. It was there in previously also and now also. But arthralgia, as I told you, polyarthralgia is a minor criteria for low risk. As we already discussed, as polyarthralgia is a major criteria in high risk. So monoarthralgia will be the criteria, minor criteria. And coming to the fever temperature recording also, if it is more than or equal to 38.5 degrees Celsius is a minor criteria and low risk. If it is more than 38 degrees Celsius, it is a minor criteria. So that means they easy to detect or include more number of people in high risk population. They decrease every criteria. Okay, modified. So temperature even at 38 degrees Celsius also it's a minor criteria. And coming to the ESR also, it used to be more than 60 millimeters for first hour as a rise in ESR for minor criteria. For a high risk population, even more than or equal to 30 mm in first hour is also considered as a minor criteria, and CRP more than or equal to 3 milligrams per deciliter for both. Okay, now you got it, the difference between previous one and revised 2015 guidelines. So these are the changes. All of you try to remember. If you read repeatedly, if you have any doubt, you can ask me. So is it clear? That's why I'm taking this class, because in theory you may get, or in the orals anybody can ask you. Because rheumatic fever, as we are in developing countries, you should know in India still we not at completely no cases of rheumatic fever. Still we are getting some on and on of acute rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. So you should be in position to diagnose. So in first rheumatic fever outbreak, if you call it first rheumatic fever diagnosis, 2 major criteria are 1 major plus 2 minor plus evidence of recent group A streptococcal infection. How will you know group A streptococcal infection is there or not? By ASO titer and Rheumatic fever relapse, that means recurrent rheumatic fever. Two major criteria, one major plus two minor, or three minor criteria. Only three minor criteria will take into consideration in moderate to high risk population. This is the one more change. Plus evidence of recent group A streptococcal infection. So why Duquette-Jones criteria we have to take? Only clinical basis we can take, like that somebody may be having doubt. So it's mainly both we have to, the clinician should judge also. Indian guidelines to restrict the diagnosis to acceptable clinical group. So to minimize the overestimation and underestimation, we should have criteria. So there is no definitely we are taking recent streptococcal infection supportive evidence. So avoid overdiagnosis, missing an opportunity for the safety net of secondary prophylaxis. Because once you diagnose rheumatic fever and you start secondary prophylaxis, we can prevent the damage to the heart valves. That's why we should have criteria. So these are the previous one. Already we fiscal 2015 one. This is no need. So what are the evidence of recent streptococcal infection? We will know that the child had recently streptococcal infection by doing ASY titers, that is antibodies to streptolysin. Titers, positive throat culture for group A streptococcal infection, rapid streptococcal antigen test, anti-DNase B test, and anti-IL-DNase titers, and history of recent scarlet fever. Any one gives evidence that child had recently streptococcal infection. So some are exceptions where without strict adherence to Jones criteria, we can diagnose acute rheumatic fever. So indolent carditis may be sole manifestation, as I told you, subclinical carditis or carditis itself is the manifestation of acute rheumatic fever. There may not be associated arthritis, because in rheumatic fever, arthritis will be migratory polyarthritis, severe pain will be there, and it subsides within 24 to 48 hours after NSAID administration. But that may not be there in all cases of carditis. Only carditis, then also you can diagnose acute rheumatic fever. Chorea may be the sole manifestation. What type of chorea? What do you call this chorea in rheumatic fever? Anybody? Name of the chorea in rheumatic fever you call as?
Shingon Korea.
So that is the only manifestation. Chorea is there also. Without any major, without any minor, also you can diagnose acute rheumatic fever. And acute rheumatic fever recurrence may not fulfill the Jones criteria always. So coming to the individual clinical features details, as I told you, arthritis, usually it's a polyarthritis, but nowadays even monoarthritis also we have to work up for rheumatic fever in case of medium to high risk population. So it's the most common manifestation, 30 to 50% of the people will have arthritis. Usually large joints will be involved, like elbow, knees, hip, ankle, like that. Large joints will be involved, and migratory fashion. Usually once pain in the one joint is subsiding, other joint will develop pain, like that migratory means. Dramatic response to aspirin or other NSAIDs, as I told you. That's why we have to work up rheumatic fever, then only we have to start aspirin. Otherwise, joint pains will subside within 24 to 40. Very dramatic response will occur. Not like in rheumatoid arthritis. In rheumatoid arthritis, we have to give NSAIDs for at least few weeks. It takes around 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes even 6 weeks also to respond in case of rheumatoid arthritis. And rheumatoid arthritis is the small joints, not the large joints. And rheumatoid arthritis usually leads to deformities. That's the difference. Usually people may ask you, how will you differentiate between rheumatic arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis? These are the main differences. It involves the rheumatoid involves the small joint, rheumatic involves the large joints, and here it's a migratory, there it's not migratory, and response to NSAIDs like aspirin and other NSAIDs will be very dramatic and rheumatic arthritis. Within 2 hours, like 24 to 48 hours, it subsides. But in case of rheumatoid, it takes weeks to subside, and deformities are formed in case of rheumatoid arthritis. And these are the joints usually never involved in rheumatic arthritis, but involved in rheumatoid arthritis, like sacroiliac joint, temporomandibular joint, and cervical joints not involved in rheumatic arthritis. And no permanent sequelae, that all of you should remember. It resolves in 6 weeks. And coming to the carditis presentation, usually span carditis. Clinically, they will have tachycardia out of proportion to fever, more tachycardia than the temperature, and sleeping pulse rate usually raised. And it's common in almost 50 to 60% of the children with acute rheumatic fever will have carditis. Usually pancarditis. Pan means all layers, endocardium, myocardium, and pericardium. All three layers will be involved. That's what we call as pancarditis. And usually never occurs as isolation, only pericarditis. Only pericarditis may be seen in tuberculous pericarditis and other conditions, but not in rheumatic fever. And it may be, severity may be variable, and pericarditis usually they will present with severe chest pain, substernal chest pain, very severe, and the child will stooping forward. In that position, the slight decrease in the pain will be there. That's why it's called as 3S, very sharp, substernal, relieved in stooping forward position. We will call like that. 3S will be there in pericarditis or rheumatic fever. Sharp, severe, substernal, relieved in stooping forward position. And usually minimal effusion will be there, not that much, and we can hear the pericardial drop if you auscultate over the pericardium. And myocarditis, usually tachycardia will be there, arrhythmia sometimes, and cardiomegaly, and failure, congestive heart failure, they will present it. Endocarditis, usually present with murmurs. Subclinically, without murmurs also, we can see the echo findings. Coming to the murmurs of this endocarditis, usually high pitch, apical holocystolic murmur radiating to axilla, suggestive of mitral regurgitation. It's only mitral incompetency or regurgitation. And apical mid diastolic murmur will be there, and high pitch decrease into diastolic murmur, upper sternal border, aortic regurgitation murmurs. These are the murmurs of endocarditis in rheumatic fever. And coming to the chronic sequelae of carditis sequelae, usually most common sequelae is the mitral insufficiency. That's why in pediatric age group with rheumatic fever associated rheumatic heart disease, usually we will see more number of MR cases, that is mitral regurgitation or mitral insufficiency. Usually some loss of valvular substance and shortening and thickening of the portate tendon leads to the mitral insufficiency. Later, as the years goes together, then they will definitive malformation of this valve leading to stenosis and mitral stenosis. Usually we will observe in adults and adolescents. Mitral stenosis takes longer duration to develop after an attack of acute rheumatic fever. Fibrosis of mitral ring, commissural adhesions, contracture of the valve leaflets, chordae papillary muscles contraction leads to mitral stenosis. Here we can hear the opening snap, low pitched rumbling, mitral diastolic murmur with presystolic accentuation ending in the loud first sound is the typical description of mitral stenosis after rheumatic fever. But there will be in congenital mitral stenosis. Very rarely we will see. Even congenital means we can observe even in less than 1 year children, but their opening snap will not be there. If you auscultate clearly, opening snap will not be there. In rheumatic fever associated mitral stenosis only, we will hear opening snap. And this usually older age group only, after 15 years like that only, we will be able to see the mitral stenosis, because it takes time to deform like this. Aortic insufficiency, sclerosis of valve distortion, retraction of the cusps of the aortic valve, characteristically early diastolic murmur in the aortic area, and apical presystolic accentuation will be there. And usually most of the cases in pediatric acute period, we will be able to hear the MR murmur followed by aortic regurgitations or insufficiency murmurs. And rarely tricuspid valve will be involved. Pulmonary valve will not be involved in case of rheumatic etiology. That is the thing we have to remember. First is the mitral valve, followed by aortic valve. Later, some extent, around 10% of the cases tricuspid valve, but pulmonary valve involvement in rheumatic fever won't be there. Usually, it's congenital problems by pulmonary stenosis, pulmonary atresia of congenital origin only, most commonly involved pulmonary valves. And Sydenham's chorea, which is observed in rheumatic fever, around 10 to 15% of the patients may develop this chorea, and most commonly in females. Around adolescent age group girls, usually they will manifest with chorea, and associated with this there will be emotional liability also. unexplainedly they will laugh, and unexplained reasons they will cry also, like that. Emotional liability will be there. Muscle weakness and disturbances of speech and gait associated with dysphoria, and school performance also decreases, that is poor scholastic performance. Usually the involuntary movements of the face, limbs, this dysphoria usually called as quasi-purposive or semi-purposive, usually involves the proximal muscles. And there are associated features in Sydenham's chorea, like signs we call as milkmaid sign and milkmaid's grip. If you hold the patient's hands with in your hands, then we will try to squeeze. They will like as though they are milking, like that. That's why called as milkmaid's grip. I will show you the photograph. And spooning and pronation of the hands. If you ask the child to raise his hands above the head and pronation position, there will be spooning. And in tongue, we can see jack in the box phenomenon, that is Wormian movements of the tongue. Whenever you ask the child to put the tongue outside. And the handwriting also will be, we can observe there's a distortion in the handwriting, these are choreic movements. I think we'll see if the video is visible. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All of you are able to,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
it's like like semi-purpose. We think that child is just adjusting his dress or like that. Like that, if you see the movements, think like this. Or otherwise, you think that child is functional, is doing purposefully, but it's not. Is these are the involuntary movements. This is Sydenham's chorea. So here, this is the picture of milkmaid grip. You can see, if you put your fingers in the child's palm, he will squeeze your fingers like a milkmaid. Okay. This is a pronation. Next, other features of Sydenham's chorea. One of you has to stop your audio. Somebody switch on their audio. Facial grimacing. Okay, chorea seen in more in girls, and it's minimum 3 months after the sore throat. Usually it takes 3 months. What happens is why the disturbance is coming.
Video is playing, ma'am, in another tab.
ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది ఓకే ఓకే ఆగిందా పవన్
Yes,
ఆఫ్
yes,
అయిందా
ma'am.
ఓకే
Off అయింది ma'am.
okay. So Korea usually, as I told, it's more common in girl children, and usually it takes 3 months after that sore throat. That's why sometimes they may forget the history of sore throat infection. They will tell about that. They won't tell that they had the sore throat also. So carditis or chorea is the diagnostic of acute rheumatic fever. We have to give prophylaxis if there is a chorea means. Next is the major criteria is erythema marginatum. It's very peculiar, usually very transient rash. If you see and if you go out and if you call your friend also, by that time it will disappear. That's why even is saying that transient rash, maculopapular rash with serpiginous borders. Raised edges will be there, central clearing. There is no pruritus, there is no itching, and most commonly on the trunk. That's why called as Prince root area is involved and never seen on the face. And if you want to show to somebody else, you have to apply some warm cloth or warm bath. After warm bath, they may reappear. This rash will appear. So it's very transient rash, and occurs in less than 10%. So that person's skin also should be light, or you have to observe keenly. Then only will able to see this rash, because it's very transient, but reproduced by application of warmth. So here you can see this is erythematous macular rash, serpiginous borders. Here you can see serpiginous borders clearly, and central clearance than the periphery. Okay, photographs are okay. Are you able to see? Here, here also. Usually trunk will be involved. Very transient. This is a closer picture of these lesions. There won't be any itching. Next is the subcutaneous nodules. If there is a subcutaneous nodules, there are more chances of carditis also. So you have to look for subcutaneous nodules very carefully, usually over the extensor surfaces of the wrist, elbow, and over the spine also. You have to examine if you have any case of acute rheumatic fever or some mitral regurgitation case. The examiner will ask you, did you examine the subcutaneous nodules, or they will ask you to demonstrate how you examine for the subcutaneous nodules. Then you have to palpate these areas only, over the spine, over the elbows and wrist, extensor surface, compulsory you have to palpate. And these are the 4 mobile painless nodules, usually varies in size from 0.5 to 2 centimeters in diameters. Here you can see subcutaneous nodule over the elbow. So coming to the association of carditis with this polyarthritis, 50 to 75% of the cases will associate with rheumatic fever and subacute carditis. And subcutaneous nodule, as I told you, more than 90% will have carditis. Why you should know whether there is a carditis or not? Because you have to treat the acute carditis. Acute carditis we won't treat, will goes to congestive heart failure, and child may die also during that episode if you miss. And afterwards, we have to give the prophylaxis to prevent further damage to the walls. That's why you should not miss carditis. So there are subcutaneous nodules, there are more chance of carditis. And chorea 60 to 75% association with carditis. Coming to the differential diagnosis of acute rheumatic fever, depending on the manifestation, there is arthritis, we have to think about the rheumatoid, only arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, as I told you, how to differentiate. SLE also, there usually rash will be there. And also arthritis, there usually multiple joints, small and large joints may be involved. Arthritis, there may be history of recently 1 week or 10 days prior to that. And here also large joints will involve. No other criteria of rheumatic fever will be there. And carditis, only carditis means you have to think about viral myocarditis, viral pericarditis, or tuberculous pericarditis, infective endocarditis, or congenital heart lesions. Chorea, Huntington chorea is a inherited condition, and Wilson's disease and tics, involuntary movements, they will mimic chorea-like picture. So you have to differentiate. It's Huntington's chorea or Sinneheim's chorea. History, all of a sudden associated emotional liability All those will be seen in Sydenham's chorea. Investigations usually to know the inflammation, acute phase reactants will be rise, like TC will be rise, DC, ESR, as I told you. It will be the minor criteria depending upon the low risk or high risk. ESR like more than 60 in low risk and more than 30 in medium to high risk. CRP and test to prove streptococcal infections like ASO titer, anti-DNase titers, enzyme titers, and anti-streptokinase titers, throat swab for streptococcus. These are for evidence of recent streptococcal infection. And chest X is very very important here, because carditis we can, before going to the echo also we can know the carditis by looking at the cardiomegaly. And ECG changes for PR intervals and other changes, and echo is definitive, and blood culture infect the endocarditis there or not, and other not for all people cardiac catheterization. You can see here is the chest X-ray of the child with acute carditis. So rheumatic fever may be there without carditis also. So without carditis, only rheumatic arthritis treatment will be different. A rheumatic fever with carditis treatment will be different. That's why always we have to take a chest X-ray. Here you can see cardiomegaly. So after treatment, congestive measures, there is decrease in the size of cardio. So if there is a cardiomegaly, carditis features are there, we have to treat the underlying congestive failure, heart failure treatment also, and we will prefer steroids along with aspirin. So ECG changes, prolonged PR interval, it may be second or third degree blocks. These are the changes of ECG in case of acute rheumatic fever with carditis. ST depression, T wave inversions. Echo, you can see cardiomegaly with wall edema, mitral regurgitation, and LA-LV dilatation, pericardial effusion, but less pericardial effusion, not massive. Decrease, it won't cause tamponade in case of rheumatic fever. Management, always in coordinating, they have to give advise the child to restrict the physical activity. Bed rest has to be given, because they may develop carditis and failure. It further increases the work of heart. So it further deteriorates the condition. So that's why you have to give bed rest. Eradication of streptococci by giving antibiotics, anti-inflammatory therapy with NSAIDs, especially aspirin. Treatment of congestive heart failure by digoxin, and the treatment of chorea by giving phenobarbital and other drugs. Prevention of recurrences by secondary prophylaxis, and surgical. We won't go for any surgical intervention in acute conditions. Only chronic, it needs a surgical intervention. Arthritis, only arthritis, bed rest and aspirin for 4 to 6 weeks is sufficient, and local measures to relieve the pain. Usually there will not be any deformities, but for we have to give secondary prophylaxis. Carditis alone, aspirin. Some people also add steroids. Carditis in failure, definitely we have to add steroids. That's a must. Prednisolone is the drug of choice, along with aspirin. So Sydenham's chorea treatment, anti-inflammatory agents usually not required, because as I told you, almost 3 months are over by the time they present with chorea. So only for movements we will give phenobarbital 15 to 30 mg TID or QID, and or allopurinol we can give 0.01 to 0.3 mg per kg for 24 hours. Just remember the phenobarbital dose, that is more than enough. Names of the other drugs like allopurinol or chlorpromazine you can use. So coming to the prevention is very, very important. So many times they ask for 4 marks and 2 marks. Prevention of acute rheumatic fever. There will be 4 measures like primordial prevention, primary prevention, secondary and tertiary. Primordial, preventing streptococcal throat infections. How will you prevent? Proper hygienic measures and vaccine. For streptococcal type A, not like in our India, but they take this proper precautions like saltwater gargling. For all school children, if they come home, they should do saltwater gargling, because in school there will be overcrowding, obviously will be there. They're more exposed to the Groupias streptococcus. So those precautions they can take. Treating the streptococcal throat infection is a primary prevention. So whenever throat infection is there, the doctor should identify streptococcal or non-viral throat infections. All streptococcal throat infection should be treated with proper antibiotic coverage for proper duration. Next, secondary is the prevention of rheumatic recurrence by chemoprophylaxis. What is the drug of choice for secondary prevention? What is the drug of choice for secondary prevention of rheumatic fever? long acting penicillin, that is benzathine penicillin.
Penicillins,
Will
benzathine
give
penicillin.
this is the only injection will be given to the gluteal region. No other injection will be given to the gluteal region because it has to be given deep IM. And tertiary is treating the rheumatic heart disease, the tertiary. So you should be at primordial or primary level, not at secondary or tertiary. Primary prophylaxis treating streptococcal sore throat infection with antibiotics like oral penicillin, procaine penicillin IM, benzathine penicillin, that is long acting, and oral erythromycin. Some people are sensitive to penicillin, we can go for erythromycin. So primary prophylaxis for vulnerable children around 5 to 15 years with pharyngitis, penicillin B, that is oral penicillin 250 to 500 mg BD or TAD for 10 days. Erythromycin 20, if they're sensitive to penicillin, you will go for erythromycin 20 to 40 mg per kg per day TAD dose. First generation cephalosporins oral like ceplexin also can be used for 10 days. Azithromycin, if they're sensitive to penicillin and cephalosporins, or we can't give erythromycin, means we can go for azithromycin 12 mg per kg per day single dose for 5 days. So maximum dose should be 500 mg only azithromycin per day. And parenteral therapy, we can give benzathine penicillin, that is otherwise called as long acting penicillin or Peneture. Depending upon the weight of the child, dose will vary. The weight of the child is less than 27 kgs, 6 lakhs international units. The child is more than weight is more than 27 kgs. We have to give 12 lakhs international units. Second prophylaxis to prevent recurrences. Benzathine penicillin or Peneture is a trade name, long-acting penicillin. Same dose as I already discussed, depending on the weight of the child, less than 27 kgs, more than 27 kgs. All of you should remember that one. And once in 3 weeks or once in 21 days, intramuscularly, outer and upper quadrant of the gluteal region will give. Oral pain, or otherwise if child is, because it's very painful, usually we'll give it Saturdays, weekends. So child will get rest on Sunday. Still, if the child is unable to come for the injection because of pain, we can go for the oral penicillin. But oral penicillin, they have to take daily, 2 times. Oral penicillin V 250 mg for less than 27 kgs, 500 mg for more than 27 kgs. Or erythromycin also daily they have to take. Or sulfadazine. So daily means there is more chance of incompliance. So if they won't take properly, then there more chance of recurrence. So better to go for benzathine penicillin only once in 3 weeks. And benzathine penicillin, all of you should remember, because in future you may become house surgeons or doctors at PHC. Never give intravenously. Always he has to give in intramuscularly only benzathine penicillin. It's a long-acting penicillin. If you give IV by mistake, by the time you withdraw the needle, the child will die. So it's a very dangerous to give IV. All of you remember benzathine penicillin, always intramuscular. Procaine penicillin also, always intramuscular. Only one penicillin will give IV, that is, what is that penicillin? Short-acting penicillin. Nobody is listening or left? What is the penicillin will give IV intravenously? For pneumonia, we will give previously, they used to call CP. What is CP? Pavan? Evaru lera unnara? Pavan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
10 more minutes. నువ్వు షార్ట్ తీసుకున్నావా స్క్రీన్ షాట్
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, benzyl penicillin, otherwise called as CP, that is crystalline penicillin, or benzyl penicillin is a short-acting penicillin given intravenously. Okay, intravenous preparation you can give IM, nothing will happen. But IM preparations never give IV. Okay. How long to give penicillin prophylaxis? Usually mothers will ask whenever, because it's very painful injection. Child will cry like anything whenever you give this benzathine penicillin. So it will be tension for the parents also. So they will ask obviously for how many days or years or months we have to give. There is only arthritis without carditis, rheumatic fever with only arthritis, that is polyarthritis, only for 5 years from the last episode or until the child meets the age of 21 years, 21 completed years, whichever comes later. Like we got it 5 years of age, we should not stop at 10 years. we have to give up to 21 years. If the child had rheumatic fever at 17 years, we can stop at 21, not at 21 years. As I told you, whichever comes later, 5 years from that period or 21 years, until 21 years. Okay? And if rheumatic fever with carditis, no residual rheumatic heart disease like no mitral regurgitation, no aortic regurgitation, then we can give up to 10 years from the last episode or till 25 years of age, whichever comes later. So 20 years cost, we can't stop at 25 years. We have to give up to 30 years of age. So rheumatic fever with carditis and heart failure or rheumatic heart disease, we have to give up to 10 years from the last episode or until the person becomes 40 years of age or sometimes lifelong. We have to give. So these are the important thing we have to remember how long we will give penicillin prophylaxis in rheumatic fever. New modes, we can try these for valproate, for chorea and IV immunoglobulins, but till now we were using aspirin and prednisolone for the acute rheumatic fever. Only joint pains, we will give only aspirin. The carditis without congestive heart failure, better to go for prednisolone. Initially, we will give, if you give aspirin also, we have to add prednisolone, but in case of carditis, prednisolone will be given. Once we given 4 to 6 weeks, we will taper the prednisolone, will stop. But aspirin will continue up to 12 weeks. So if there is a sore throat, skin pain, or skin lesions, and swollen joint, it's always we have to suspect rheumatic fever. Any doubts? Any doubts regarding acute rheumatic fever in children? How to diagnose and how to give treatment and how to give prophylaxis. Is there any doubts?
No, ma'am.
ఎవరికైనా డౌట్ ఉంటే అడగొచ్చు. లేవా ఉన్నదా అర్థమైందా అర్థం కాలేదా? Because it's very important topic. We have to know also practical purpose also. As I told you, if you miss the diagnosis, can leads to lifelong deformity of the valves. Rheumatic heart disease. If you diagnose rheumatic fever and treat that subset self-limiting, they will just take the prophylaxis for a few years. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Doubts ఏం లేవు కదా? అయితే నేను నెక్స్ట్ క్లాస్ చెప్తే టైం ఉంది లేదు కదా కావాసాకి డిసీజ్. Out of syllabus, they ask, sometimes they may ask, we should know also. Not only like there is no clear-cut syllabus for medicine or MBBS. Any common condition, now they may ask you about corona also, like that. What is epidemics happening recently or anything recent rising trends, they may ask you, because as a doctor you should know, like that. Okay, we can't say that's not out of syllabus also. Like Kawasaki is rising, that's why they might ask, but yeah, like that. So you have to read about the corona. They may ask about the coronavirus in medicine or pediatrics or any OBGY, anything. So like that, common conditions, emerging diseases also should read. Okay, any doubts? Then
No, ma'am.
Doubts em levu kada, leave chesena?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, bye.